Imagine reading a biography of Abraham Lincoln, where the first two-thirds cover his entire life, childhood, law career, presidency, but the final third covers only the last week before his assassination. Every detail of those final days. You think this isn't really a biography. It's a death narrative with a long preface. That's exactly what the Gospel of Mark is. Once you see this structure, you can't unsee it. The shortest Gospel spends an extraordinary amount of time on Jesus' death, and it ends in the strangest possible way, mid-sentence, with terrified women running away in silence. Two questions drive this video. Why would someone structure a text this way? And why does it end so abruptly that ancient scribes felt compelled to fix it? To answer, we need to understand what a gospel actually is. A gospel is not a modern biography. There's no childhood development, no psychological portrait, no explanation of how Jesus became who he was. The Greek word euangelium means good news. This is proclamation, not documentation. Scholars describe Mark as a passion narrative with an extended introduction. The word passion comes from Latin passio, meaning suffering. It encompasses the arrest, trial, crucifixion, and resurrection. This isn't just a section at the end, it's the gravitational center. Everything else orbits around it. Look at the structural breakdown. Mark has 16 chapters. A quick note, chapter divisions are medieval. The original was continuous Greek capitals with no spaces and no punctuation. Ancient readers read aloud to make sense of it. Chapters 1 through 10 cover roughly 3 years of ministry. Chapters 11 through 15 cover approximately 1 week in Jerusalem. Chapter 16, verses 1 through 8, resurrection morning. 1/3 of the entire gospel covers the final week. 5 of 16 chapters devoted to 7 days. In this proportion reveals what the author considered most important. The compression becomes even more striking when you visualize the timeline. The narrative stretches across years for the early ministry: baptism, calling disciples, healings, teachings, conflicts. Then it funnels dramatically into the final week. Sunday, triumphal entry. Monday, temple confrontation. Tuesday, extended teachings. Thursday, Last Supper. Friday, arrest, trial, crucifixion. Sunday, empty tomb. The pacing shifts from leisurely to urgent. Time itself seems to slow down as we approach the cross, with each day receiving detailed attention that earlier months or years never received. Even in the earlier chapters, the ending casts its shadow forward. Jesus predicts his death 3 times in chapters 8, 9, and 10. Each prediction grows more detailed. Chapter 8, the Son of Man must undergo great suffering. Chapter 9, the Son of Man is to be betrayed. Chapter 10, they will condemn him to death, hand him over to the Gentiles, mock him, spit upon him, flog him, and kill him. These aren't random warnings. They're structural signposts pointing toward the destination. Now the strange part. Here's Mark 16:8, the original ending. The women find the empty tomb. A young man in white tells them Jesus is risen. Then they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. Full stop. Gospel over. Jesus never appears risen in Mark's original ending. The messengers fail to deliver their message. The Greek literally ends with the word for, "gar," like ending a sentence with "because." Matthew, Luke, and John all have resurrection appearances. Mark doesn't. Ancient scribes found this ending intolerable. They added 2 different endings to complete the gospel. The shorter ending adds a brief summary. The women eventually told Peter, and Jesus sent out the message of salvation. The longer ending, verses 9 through 20, includes resurrection appearances borrowed from the other Gospels. Jesus appears to Mary Magdalene, to 2 disciples walking in the country, to the 11 at table. It even includes snake handling and drinking poison. Modern scholars agree Mark intended to end at 16:8. The additions prove ancient readers found it unsatisfying, but unsatisfying doesn't mean broken. Was the original ending lost? Possible, but unprovable. Most scholars now believe the abruptness is intentional. Consider what the ending accomplishes. It forces reader participation. You must complete the story. Right? It emphasizes mystery over neat resolution. Right? It mirrors the disciples' own confusion in the narrative. The women were told to go tell the disciples. They didn't. The message hangs in the air. Mark refuses to wrap things up. The resurrection is announced but not displayed. Faith is demanded without proof. Knowing this structure changes how you read. Try reading chapters 14 through 16 first, then return to chapter 1. Ask of every scene, how does this point toward the passion? The healings foreshadow restoration through suffering. The conflicts with authorities anticipate the trial. The teachings prepare disciples for what's coming. Mark's messianic secret, Jesus repeatedly telling people not to reveal his identity, makes more sense now. The full revelation only comes through the cross. Identity and death are inseparable in this gospel. Mark doesn't give us a complete Jesus. He gives us a Jesus whose meaning is found in his death and an ending that refuses closure. The structural imbalance is the message. 31% of the text covers 7 days. Because those 7 days matter more than the preceding years, the passion isn't the conclusion of the story, it's the lens through which everything else must be viewed. The women were afraid, they said nothing. The gospel ends in silence and terror, but you're reading it now. The message reached you despite their failure. Mark's abrupt ending doesn't close the story, it opens it. The question isn't what happened next. The question is what you do with this news.